Hello, my name is Jessica Hughes, and I will be presenting about Thomas Gallaudet today. He was born December 10th, 1787, and he was very smart. He was accepted to Yale at the age of 15, and he graduated just before he turned 18. He studied law, English literature, and taught at Yale for a little bit. He was also a businessman, and he went west on some business ventures, and then he became an accountant in an accounting house for a judge. Later, he studied at the Andover Theological Seminary to become a minister for his church. One time, in 1811, he was visiting his parents in Connecticut, and he saw some children playing outside, and he realized that they left one girl out. They weren't playing with her, and so he went to talk to the children and find out why, and he learned that the girl was deaf. Her name was Alice Cogswell, and he decided to try to talk to her. So he drew the word hat in the dirt and then pointed to his hat. And he did this several times until she understood that hat meant hat. He got really excited, and then he went to go talk to her father, Dr. Mason Cogswell. And there, Dr. Mason Cogswell and some other prominent families of the day sent him to England with their funding to learn about deaf schools and how he could change things. So when Thomas Gallaudet went to England, he was greeted by John Quincy Adams, who was then the ambassador of America. And John Adams would not let him into school, and he had some requirements that he had to fulfill. For instance, staying at the school for 3 years before he could study. He had to just work there for them, and he also didn't have enough money to pay the tuition, so he decided he wasn't going to do that. However, he met Jean Massou and Lauren Clerc, two Frenchmen, who took him in and brought him to their school in France. There, he learned sign language and saw how the French used sign language, and he was very interested. It was very fascinating to Gallaudet. So he studied there for a little while and eventually went back to America, where he brought Lauren Clerc with him. They set up a school together. Interestingly enough, though, Lauren Clerc was deaf himself, and that he was very critical in helping the school because he taught Gallaudet how to use sign language and how to teach it. It's very interesting. So, with the help of the Cogswell family again, they set up the school in Connecticut in 1817, and it was called the American School for the Deaf. He taught sign language, and enrollment grew as he allowed parents to come in and watch their children learn and see their progress. This really helped him because the word spread, and I don't know, it's just very fascinating. People loved it. Continuing, he married Sophia Fowler in 1821, who was actually a student at his school. She was 19 years old, and he was 34, and that was a 15-year difference. And together they had 8 children. Inspired by his children, Gallaudet wrote some informative books for children, such as the children's version of the Bible, or Bible stories for children, and things like that. So he was very brilliant still, even after he retired from teaching and being the principal of his school. Today, Gallaudet has really affected education for the better. He made it possible for children with hearing impairments to learn, which was very significant because before they couldn't learn. There was significant ramifications for kids who were deaf. They were not able to learn. But he changed that. He helped them learn how to communicate with others and with each other, and it was really cool because even though they couldn't hear, they could still communicate. Basically, Gallaudet standardized the American Sign Language for deaf people today, and then he standardized communication, and that is significant. At his school, he not only taught deaf children sign language and how to learn, and math and science and whatever of the day with sign language, but he also taught teachers and trained them to be able to teach students at other schools, which is pretty significant as well. He spread sign language and helped other people learn. see. He helped break the barrier for the hearing impaired to be able to learn like normal children. And because of Gallaudet's contributions, deaf children could feel normal in a school environment, which was very good of him. Because being deaf kind of separated these kids. They couldn't hear they couldn't learn how to talk because they couldn't hear the words and the syllables. And it was just very, very difficult. But with American Sign Language, he taught them how to learn and how to communicate. So that really helped them, and it broke the barrier of the ramifications that they had for education. So that's good news. Also, today, Gallaudet's school is named after him. It's still in Connecticut, and it's a university for teenagers who are deaf. They can go to college right after high school and be able to learn like a normal person. Personal impact, as today, I have an aunt who used to work in social work, and she would use sign language to communicate with the kids that she was working with. It really helped her. Also, I have an uncle who is a sign language interpreter, and he would always tell me about like how the kids he was working with were learning and how exciting it was to see them understand just basic math and science and English and everything, just like normal kids. Gallaudet really helped with that because of his standardization of the language. Also, I used to work with the special needs kids at my high school, and sometimes like they could hear but they couldn't speak, but they knew some basic sign language that really helped them communicate what they needed and what they wanted. It was very, very significant. It was really good to be able to communicate with them like that, to say simple things like no or yes, because sometimes they didn't understand vocal cues. Also, it was cool to I'm sure you have all seen Napoleon Dynamite, the Happy Hands Club. They sign a song, and it's funny because it's a joke of the movie, but it's also good to realize that sign language is there and that it's such a beautiful language. Overall, Thomas Gallaudet really helped America, and just by going to England and then to France and discovering what needed to be done and doing it, he significantly helped Americans, and that's why he's an educational giant.